This is Chris Isham. I'm the Washington Bureau Chief for CBS News, and welcome to Flashpoints. I'm here as always with Juan Zarate, our Chief National Security Analyst. Welcome, Juan.
Thank you, Chris.
Juan, let's talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia. This week, a stunning development. There was an announcement by the royal decree at 4 a.m. on Wednesday that there had been a big shakeup in the kingdom. King Salman, the current king, essentially fired the crown prince, Prince Mukran, and appointed the next generation, the first time that the torch has passed to the next generation, Mohammed bin Nayef, the son of the former interior minister. And also promoted the current Saudi ambassador to the United States, Adel al-Jubair, to be foreign minister, replacing the 79-year-old and ailing Prince Saud. Very dramatic, very unusual for the kingdom, which usually does things very slowly and deliberately. What does all this mean?
It's really interesting, Chris, because this change, though anticipated at some point, wasn't anticipated, I think, this quickly, and certainly not at a moment where Saudi Arabia finds itself fighting a war on its doorstep in Yemen and this proxy battle against Iran more broadly. But what you have is a pretty bold move by King Salman to do exactly what you described, which is to answer the question of generational succession. The question all along for the Saudi monarchy is, what happens after this current generation of leadership goes, when they die? Is there going to be instability? What happens next? He, in essence, has solved that problem, or at least he's provided an answer. And the new crown prince, Mohammed bin Nayef, somebody that I know and a lot of American officials know, a great friend of the United States, the chief sort of counterterrorism official for the Saudi kingdom, the target of assassination by al-Qaeda. He survived that, and a real friend of the West. Really an interesting moment, and of course, you know the current Saudi ambassador, I know him as well, Adel al-Jubair, becoming the foreign minister. And so what you have is not just a move to a new generation, but a move to key individuals who have deep relationships with the West and the United States. That's good news for the U.S., and it's good news for the stability of the monarchy in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, you're quite right. In fact, I was at dinner with Adel al-Jubair just the other night, and he, of course, didn't tip his hand at all. But
maybe he didn't know.
I think it was all pretty sudden.
Yeah.
In any case, as you mentioned, both of these officials now do have deep links to the United States and deep contacts within the United States. But we've also seen, I think, in the kingdom, a much more proactive stance and more independent stance in relation to a number of regional issues. We saw them going into Yemen, where they're still very engaged. And we've seen them take a much more of a leadership position in Syria, uniting the Qataris and the Turks in the fight against Assad. What do you think that means?
Well, I think the Saudis are smart and they're realistic, and they realize that the U.S. commitment to their security may not be as complete as they would like, and they've certainly sent signals to the U.S. about their displeasure of U.S. policy in certain ways. And so that has meant that the Saudis, as well as the Egyptians and the Emiratis, have taken a more independent stance and have realized that they're going to have to take on certain fights on their own, whether they're ideological, political, diplomatic, or on the battlefield. And that's why you've seen things like the Saudis coalescing the Sunni regimes in Yemen. That's why you've seen the Egyptians and the Emiratis flying sorties into Libya without notifying the U.S., without permission of the U.S. And so in some ways this is a new reality with countries like Saudi Arabia realizing they're going to have to take ownership of some of these problems on their own, whether it's counterterrorism, the Iranians, or the ideological fight against the Muslim Brotherhood. They can't wait for the U.S., and they in some ways are telling us, as you know, Chris, they realize they perhaps can't rely on the U.S.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Juan, and we'll see you next time for Flashpoints.